So hi everyone, thank you so much for joining this tea break webinar run by Flourish. My name's Lyndsey. I manage the professional services team at Flourish, and Simona and Louisa are also here who work on the support and content team. So if you have any questions whilst I am doing the webinar, please just put stuff in the chat and they will respond to any questions, and then I'll also leave a little bit of time at the end if there's any questions that people want to ask by voice. So let me just hopefully everyone's fine to see this. I'm hoping. Please shout if you aren't seeing this tea break slides on the first one, which is how to flourish at data storytelling. Hopefully you can. So today I'm going to talk to you. Yes, okay, cool. Right, I'm going to close the chat so it doesn't distract me. So today we're going to talk about how to flourish at data storytelling, with a focus on how Flourish as a software sits along other data visualization and BI tools, and this is a question that we get asked a lot by customers, so we thought it would be helpful to go through what BI tools are, how Flourish is different to them, what you should use Flourish for. So I'm giving this away a little bit in the gender items, but visual analytics versus communication, and also just taking you through a couple of examples to show the differences between what you would use BI tools for and what you would use Flourish for, just to really bring it to life, how our customers should use the different tools for different things. So this is the agenda. We have half an hour to go through this. So my first slide is about what are BI tools. So what do they normally tend to do? And this is a whole host of words that spring to mind for BI tools. We normally think of them focused on big data sets, analyzing things, preparing and transforming information, metrics, putting together metrics and reports for internal management decisions, all these sorts of things. This is all fairly different words that we would think about when we think about using Flourish, and I'll move on to that. And so as a summary of what BI tools tend to do, they are software that's designed to retrieve information from a data warehouse or a database or spreadsheets, give you the ability to transform that data and clean it, give you the ability to analyze information and report data. And these are some of the BI tools that we come across a lot that our customers use. Tableau is my particular tool of choice from my background in other jobs, but loads of other people use Power BI, Looker, Click, and there's multiple and many BI tools in the market. So you could be using different things to these, but these are kind of ones that crop up a lot with our customers. And so where on the journey do you use these tools? Where on the data journey do you use BI tools, and where would you use something different like Flourish? So this is quite a simplified data journey, but just so we know we don't get into the complex. For all data analysis and communication, you actually need some data. So this is something that has to be done beforehand. You have to understand the questions you want to answer, collect your information, store it in a, as I said, collect it by survey or whatever method you want to collect the information, and store it in your IT system. So this happens no matter what tool you use. Then we would suggest that you use BI tools to find your data story, and this would be exploring the data sets that you have for interesting data, cleaning it, preparing it, any kind of data preparation needs to do to help you find interesting stories and help you do your analysis. We would suggest you do this all in BI tools or other software such as R or Python, which are more code-based analytical languages. But in essence, you will be finding your data story in these tools. So at the end of the data journey, you've got the ability to tell your story. And this is where Flourish comes into play. So Flourish is a software that has been designed to help our customers tell their data stories. And we normally find that this is the part of the journey that is least spent time on, least looked at, and lots of people stay in this part of the journey and use their BI tools to tell their data stories, but these are have not been designed as a good way of communicating data. So we'll get onto that with some, sorry, I'm in the wrong screen now. We'll get onto that with some examples soon. So why is Flourish different to BI tools, you may ask? Both have data visualization in them. Aren't they the same? Aren't we all trying to achieve the same thing? And you're right, both do have data visualization based on Flourish is based on the premise of visualizing information. But the purposes of the data visualization are very different. So in BI tools and visual analytics tools, the focus is on analysis and exploring your data set. And you might do this visually by charting up your data, which is normally a good idea because you can find interesting patterns and outliers by visually exploring your data. And this, something like Tableau, is a very, very good visual analytics BI tool where you can drag and drop information to visualize all the underlying data, versus visual communication, which is the explanation of your data and the explanation of the story and the key messages and points that you want to convey to people. And this is normally for a large chunk of our customers, internal management decisions, so trying to communicate things that are found in the business to influence decisions, or maybe external communication where you're trying to give, like a newsroom is trying to explain a story or give information on something in particular. So it can be for, it's all kinds of communication, internal or external communication Flourish can be good for, but these are the two kind of differing ways of thinking about it. Visual analysis for exploration in BI tools, visual communication for explanation in Flourish. So let me just check. Yes, so I'm going to go through a couple of examples using dashboards. So analytically heavy organizations and teams love dashboards. These are very synonymous with BI tools, and dashboards are used to report data. This is not really the same as telling a story, even though a lot of people with analytical background think they are telling a story. They are not really, they are just presenting information and asking the person that's looking at that dashboard to try and find stories and information for themselves. And this may be the right way to do it if you're in an analytical team and you're just reporting metrics for internal purposes. But normally, people that are coming to your dashboards aren't very familiar with your data, aren't very familiar with your analysis, and don't really understand what you're trying to tell them. And so you are forcing them to do your job for them, which is to look for the story or the key points in your dashboard. So I hope that might resonate with some people. So I am going to take you through this example in Tableau because that's what I use. So we're going to use look at that previous dashboard example in Tableau and focus on the finding your story, retrieving data, transforming it and analyzing it in a BI tool like Tableau. So let's go to sharing another screen and hopefully this will work. Can you see this? Yeah. Yes, you can see this.
Yes, all good.
Perfect. So this is for people that aren't familiar with some BI tool or Tableau. They tend to look like this. This is the dashboard view of Tableau. I'll give you a quick cant around Tableau just to show you why I would use Tableau for my visual analytics. But this is the dashboard that we've just seen. So you can have filters on here, you can have highlighting, but ultimately someone is exploring this for information rather than looking at it and saying, right, what is this trying to tell me? What do you want me to know? How should I act on this? So if I go into the actual kind of user-facing part of Tableau, so where the person that's using the tool would build up their dashboards or do their analysis, this is what it looks like. So this is a worksheet in Tableau. This is where you bring in all your data sources. So this is a world indicators data set in here. This is just the Tableau sample data set that's in their normal when you open up Tableau desktop. So there's nothing particularly crazy about this data set. It's just a sample data set from them. This is where you bring in all your data. So this is that kind of data retrieval part of a BI tool where you can bring in all the data from your various databases or spreadsheets or wherever the information is stored. And then it will read into here as all the different data sets. So there are 4 different data sets in here: business, development, health, and population data sets. And then as an analyst, you are off to explore all these this big merged data set of all these different indicators to try and find something interesting in the data that you want to show someone or highlight some interesting patterns or trends. So in this example, it's the business data it's coming from, that's the dashboard is made from, and the main scatter chart in that dashboard is looking at the ease of business index. So if we drag this here, we can plot this, and the average ease of biz index score is 95 for this data set, and this data set is based on countries. So if I drag that in, this is all the different countries. This doesn't make complete sense at the moment, but if I do it as a bar chart, I can see these are all the different countries. And so the country Chad has the highest ease of business index, which means it's hard to do business there. And if we go down to the bottom, Singapore has the lowest ease of business index. But I want to explore this a bit more, like what do I want to find a relationship between something, or find if something drives how easy it is to do business. So I can start dragging and dropping in, let's take this out, and different ways of looking at this data. So I can look at it in a scatter and see, is there some kind of relationship between ease of business and the lending rate? And there seems like there is a marginally positive relationship. So it's harder to do business with countries with high interest rates. Poor old Zimbabwe there. But do I want to look at something else? So here, maybe I bring in some more data from another data set, look at GDP. Okay, so now I want to see, does GDP have some relationship to whether it's easy to do business or not? So here it seems like the alternative relationship, so higher countries with higher GDP, there's the US, it's easier to do business with. But then maybe I think, actually, I shouldn't just use GDP, I should use GDP per capita to take into account that the populations are different. So here I've got population data, and I want to look at it. I want to create a calculation to look at GDP per capita. So here in Tableau, I can do a calculation, which is GDP divided by population total. So the BI tool is where I would do all my calculations, not Flourish, and I would bring it into here, and I want to do this as an average. So now I can see there's a much stronger relationship to GDP per capita. So this is the story I want to tell. This is my interesting story. So I'm going to get rid of these other metrics. And yeah, so that's something I think, oh, there's quite a strong correlation there. But then I want to maybe color it differently. So here I might put together, this is called ease of business clusters, and all this is grouping different countries into are these low ease of business, moderate ease of business, friendly, and this is grouping all the countries in those different groups. Again, this is a bit of data preparation, data transformation, and then I can bring this on here and I can see, oh, I can color it. These are country, it happens to be that countries in this bracket of low scores are easier to do business in, they're very friendly, and they have higher GDPs, and then these are friendlier and least friendly and low friendliness. So I hope that just gives a very quick flavor of the sorts of things that I would do in my BI tool. I would be merging my data sets. I'd be exploring all the data, seeing if, so here, look, I can see there's 22 nulls. So I can have a look into what countries have null data. And if I wanted to do something about that, I can do my calculations, my grouping, all this kind of data preparation, cleaning and transformation in my BI tool. Then, you know, if I was an analyst and I wanted to report my findings to someone, I might put it together in a dashboard. So I bring my sheet in, this is my dashboard, this is that scatter. And then I've also decided that I want to give a bit more information about what makes up this ease of biz index. So it's these different factors, how easy it is to do business is based on the business tax rate, the hours it takes a company to do their taxes, and the days to start a business. And in here, if I knew that I could do this, I could click on, look, Luxembourg. So Luxembourg are low across all of these 3 indicators, but they're deemed only to be a moderately friendly country to do business in, but they have a high GDP. If I start to look at here, I can see some kind of patterns. I can see low indexes. Sorry, this wording is terrible that Tableau used. So this kind of that is harder to do business. So it's low ease of business. I can see all these blue ones are up here and these orange ones are down here, but it's a bit harder to see these turquoise ones. And so it's quite a big mental load, and I have to kind of really understand this dashboard and what to click on and how to navigate my way around it to get into the information underlying all the different countries. So the next step would be going into something like Flourish to tell the story from this data. So pick out important themes and explain them properly to my audience who may have no idea about this data set and all the analysis that I've done to come to some key learning. So I'm going to go back into my presentation slides. So here, this is what we've been doing in Tableau. We've been finding our data story. And now we are going to Flourish to see how we can make this data story resonate more with our audience and how we can pick out key points and tell it in an animated, engaging story in Flourish instead. So this is all the same data. It's just put together in a slightly different way, in a data storytelling way. So here I am explaining what a low ease of biz index score means. It's easier to do business. So in this part of the chart, it's easier to do business. Countries with a low ease of biz index are very friendly to do business in. Singapore is the easiest country to do business in with a score of 1. So I'm really bringing home that these low scores are where it's easier to do business. And then I'm using animation and our scatter plot to describe the relationship with ease of business with GDP. So a high GDP per person correlates with ease of business. I'm picking out some data points. So because I want people to know that these countries of Singapore, Hong Kong, New Zealand, US and Denmark are performing the best, all with ease of business indices below 5. And then I'm animating in that it's harder to do business in countries with lower GDP per capita. I'm picking out some countries where there's an exception. So Luxembourg has the highest GDP per capita out of countries with an index of 56. I mean, this is just something I've decided to draw out in my story. I want someone to know that, but you could pick out anything. It's just dependent on what you want to draw people's attention to. And then as GDP per capita decreases further, it's even harder to do business. Apart from Kuwait, all countries with a moderate ease of business have a GDP per capita of below $10,000. And then all countries with low ease of business have a GDP per capita of below $12,500. So all around here. And then I'm going to jump into what is making that ease of business index, what's driving that score. Which was much harder to understand the relationship between those charts in the Tableau dashboard. But now I'm going to explain it. So we have this nice animation, so we can see that these harder to do business, poorer countries actually have higher average business tax rates. And this is one of the 3 factors that determine the ease of business index. And that is what's driving higher scores. And the second thing that determines the ease of business tax rates is average hours to do tax. And again, you can see these countries with these poorer countries with low scores have higher average hours to do taxes. And the same for days to start business. And then you can compare them across all the measures. So you are stepping people much more through those key messages and the key things that you want people to understand than you could ever get from just letting someone look at a dashboard where all the information is just chucked up there and you're expecting the reader to find out and understand all this information for themselves. So that was one example based on the sample data set in the Tableau dashboards. This is just one other example that we had put together for one of our Flourish customers. So it's a real life example. And I apologize if you don't really understand the topic area, but it's from the Financial Stability Board. It's very technical. It's their global monitoring report on non-bank financial intermediation. This is a report where they put this dashboard up actually on their website. For people to understand what's happening with non-bank financial intermediation. And there's a lot of very detailed information in this dashboard. Again, a user has to click around all these different things to find out what's actually happening to the data. There's no real understanding of the key points or messages in the report. So what do you want your reader to take away? All I can really take at a glance is that these pink bars are going up a lot. I don't know what those pink bars are. I don't know what EF1 means. And so for this particular customer, we went through this with them and what they could potentially do, even though it's a very technical subject for a technical audience that understands the FSB's global monitoring and they understand this world. This is still something that would be very hard to come to and understand what are the FSB trying to tell their audience on their website. And so we made so the reason I like this example is that we made a scrolly for them. So in Flourish, it's very easy to do scrolly telling, which is stepping through a story like I just did with the ease of business index, but doing it on scroll rather than clicking through slides. And this is that very same dashboard, but with some much more kind of information, like talking people through exactly what you're trying to show. So this is this means non-bank financial intermediation, and saying what's happened. So this has grown over time to this amount in 2020. And then this is all explained on scroll. This growth has been driven by different economic functions, and it's those pink bars that have been growing. So they have which are called, they're the collective investment vehicles. I don't know what that means, but we're very much spelling out this has grown to be a 75% share of this measure, and there has been 9% growth in the last year. So this is very much the key point. And then just stepping through all the underlying other bars and how they have changed. So this economic function 2, which is short-term funding, has been going down as a share, even though it's been growing over time, and so on. So we're stepping through all those components in the dashboard, but actually explaining the key messages and points, making it much more easier and upfront for our readers or users to understand the key messages that we want them to take from the report. So sorry, I think I clicked on the wrong side. Oh, that's the actual Tableau dashboard on the FSB website. I don't know what I've done here. I shrunk it. Sorry. So if I just click through, yeah. So that was just a couple of examples to show you how you can use Flourish for storytelling and scrollytelling versus dashboards to really communicate your data story. So just to wrap up, we've got 3 minutes left, and some of the key points. Most people aren't as familiar with your data as you are, so don't expect them to be. Don't make your audience do your job for you. You should be doing the analysis and finding the story in things like different softwares like BI tools, and then you need to explain this to your audience in other softwares like Flourish. If you want key points to land, you need to spell them out. So this kind of stepping through different points, explaining them, all the way through, and in general, stories and visual communication, including movement and animation, which you've seen, are far more engaging and much easier for someone to understand than a dashboard. And just to leave you on this last point, which is remember, find your data story in BI tools, but tell your data story in Flourish. And that is the end. I have 2 minutes. Any questions if you want to jump in or speak up, or maybe there has been questions in the chat and I've just missed those.
And I'm just quickly going through some questions that I see.
Yes.
As well around whether it's available on the free version. Scrollytelling is not, that is an enterprise feature. And then another question was around story training. Yes, we can share some links to help docs on how to create a story and what all the different kinds of things you can do with them. And one question was remaining around the FSB story, but I think that's linked in your slides.
Yeah, it'll be in the slides. So it's fully interactive within the Canva, these slides that we have. So you'll be able to play around with it in there.
And then there was just one last question. I don't know if you wanted to say anything on that, maybe. Have you ever seen anyone bake this into internal workflows, carving out time for polished stories?
Yes, it's quite hard. This is a hard question, but a good one. So, I mean, normally telling a story, it takes time, right? You've got to do all your analysis, formulate it all down into some key points, and making things simple and designed beautifully is, time consuming. I haven't seen this, but customers have asked, because it kind of, in one sense, it's like a person has to look at the analysis and come up with a story. So kind of automating it and baking it into an internal workflow kind of goes against that, because you're not, as a person, finding a story and being able to go through it and step by step explain it. But we do have customers that want to do this for kind of reports out to their own customers. So they want to auto generate reports and stories and sub in different data for them. And so I suppose you could do this if you make your kind of text quite generic and you don't pinpoint certain things that may change if you're replicating it for something else as it's being kind of automated or refreshed through from an internal workflow. I think that's your question, but I am not sure if I've answered it. But feel free to contact me afterwards and we can talk about it in more detail if that would be helpful. We're a couple of minutes over. So yeah, as Louisa said, the slides will be available, the recording will be available, and please feel free to message us if you would like to discuss anything further, and we can help you from there. Thanks so much for coming, and have a good rest of your afternoon.